Today I have an exciting challenge in store for the Lumix G9 Mark II camera. I'm going to put the camera to the ultimate test by capturing the most hated bird in action. Which bird, you ask? Why, the pigeon, of course. But why photograph the most hated bird? There are many great reasons to photograph feral rock pigeons. Unlike other birds, pigeons are found nearly all over the world, so I didn't have to travel far to find them. They don't migrate, so you can find them all year round. They can be found in huge flocks or flying solo. Pigeons are like snowflakes. No two are alike. Okay, don't quote me on that. I have no idea if it's true. But they definitely have a variety of plumage, and that makes the photos more interesting to look at. And this notorious species is famously quick and a challenge to photograph, especially when in flight. All of these traits make pigeons very good subjects to test out some of the key features of the Lumix G9 Mark II, as well as my own capabilities. Can the Lumix G9 II rise to the challenge? Can I? Now, I spent some time in this rail yard, and I went back there in different weather conditions too. I found that in large flocks, pigeons make very dramatic compositions, as they tend to all take off and fly at the same time. Then they'll circle back and land in the same area again. So I got lots of chances to shoot them. Flying pigeons are fast-moving, so they really challenged my photography skills. The hardest part was keeping them in the frame. Once I did that, I let the G9 Mark II do the rest. Okay, let's look at the back of the camera and see some of the settings that worked for me for photographing pigeons. One of the first settings I choose when wanting to freeze the action of fast-flying birds like pigeons is a fast shutter speed. In this case, I chose 1/4000th of a second. I shot in manual exposure mode. I had my lens as wide open as it could. Auto ISO is what I used. I used auto white balance, the natural setting, fine JPEGs, because for this test I didn't need to use raw files. And you can see here that I used autofocus continuous. What it doesn't show you though is your actual, let's go into our focus settings here. It doesn't show you your focus mode area detection when you're playing back your photos, nor does it tell you what setting you used for the human animal detection and those subject detection settings. So if you are doing tests, you will have to take good notes because, let's play back this photo, you can see that even in the deep settings, it doesn't have anything to do with subject detection and things like that. Okay, well, let's get into those focus settings. So I like to store them in the quick menu. And you can see that we have animal detection body, and then you can also have eye body. So in the case of pigeons, because they're quite far away, I just used the body setting, because if they were filling the frame and if I was closer to them and perhaps shooting like an owl or something on a tree, I could use the eye detection, but because they're flying so fast, I use the animal body. Now, also, if you have more than one pigeon in the frame, animal body is the setting you want. If you do it to the animal eye body, it will just focus on one bird. One thing I noticed when photographing groups of birds is I had it on the animal body detection. Some of the birds that were in the same focal plane had squares around them, so I knew that those birds would be in focus, and I relied on depth of field to focus on the ones behind and some in front. As far as where in the frame you want them, I did get pretty good results with pigeons using the full area, but I often also used the zone detection. But that was mostly for pigeons when they're more in the center of the frame. I actually found really good results with the full area detection. And as far as the tracking goes, I didn't use tracking all that much. Surprisingly, I thought I would. Maybe if I had an individual bird, like say there was an owl I was stalking and trying to get it in flight and waiting for that moment. And as mentioned, for probably 90% of my shots, I used continuous autofocus. But some of the shots that you saw of the pigeons on the building, I used single. because basically it was a shot of a building and the building wasn't moving and the pigeons were small enough in the frame that having it on single shot did not affect the focus of the pigeons as they're flying around. The continuous autofocus on the Lumix G9 is just excellent, and I had a very good hit rate. All right, let's talk about burst settings. Let's get into the camera menus. The photography menus drop down to burst shot settings. Now, this has to do with the drive mode dial, which is on the top of the camera. The first drive mode dial is the burst shot 1 setting, and I have it set up to high speed burst. And you can change high, medium, and low. And the speed of this has to do with the size of the file, whether it's a small JPEG, a large JPEG, a RAW file, etc. So I'm sticking to high speed burst. For burst shot 2 setting, I like to have it on super high 20 frames per second or super high speed 20 pre-burst. The pre-burst is great for things like pigeons because sometimes you don't know exactly what's going to happen. Now, with the pre-burst comes another setting, and that means how much time is that pre-burst recording before it actually writes it to the memory card. So you can have half a second, 1 second, or 1.5 seconds. If I go into the super high speed burst menu, you notice that some of these speeds are grayed out, like 75 frames per second. And the reason for that is it does not work on continuous focus. So I'm going to put it to single shot focus, and now you can see that the 75 frames per second settings are available. But, for the birds, I like to keep it on continuous. And for me, for most of my shots, SH20 pre-burst or just plain super high speed, 20 frames a second, worked great. So here's your drive mode dial, and here's the single shot, here's the first burst setting you set, and this is where the second burst setting you set. So when you want to change those burst settings, you have to rotate the dial. So when playing back the super high speed burst, you'll see that you have a series of images displayed. And in this case, I have 53 photos in that burst. And if I want to play them back individually, I can hit the bottom of my control dial at the back, and I can cycle through one at a time. You can see here it's going frame by frame. So you can see like a lot of change between each of these frames. And I'm trying to keep it in the frame. And the pigeon is landing. And he's sitting there. And that's it. So 53 photos. This is one that I used in this video, and you might recall that. I mean, look at the crispness of the focus of that image. I mean, that's just crazy. It's crazy to me anyway. Shutter speed, 1/4000th of a second, f5, ISO 400. Like, it's just mind-blowing to me that this camera stayed in focus on this little pigeon and made it look so beautiful. Here's a little group of 7 photos, which I have included in this video as well. And you can see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, say about 4 of them that are good. I mean, to me, it's kind of crazy that I've got such clarity on these photos, and the focus is just bang on. So to do burst modes like this, you kind of have to anticipate what's going to happen. You kind of have to watch the pigeons or whatever you're photographing for a while to see if something interesting is going to happen. I mean, this series had 36 frames. Maybe this one's the one. Maybe this is the one that I want. I mean, just look at how much is in focus with this shot. I mean, it's incredible. I'm just blown away by how it can keep things in focus. And because you have a larger file size on the Lumix G9 Mark II, you can afford to crop a little bit, especially if you're using these for social media. Definitely try out burst modes. It's so fun to play with. Give it a shot. And my best words of advice, if you want to get photos like this, you need a bright sunny day. You want to have crisp, beautiful photos at a fast shutter speed. You do not want mushy photos. If the light is low, your photos will be mushy looking. You will not get the crispness of your shots like you do on a bright sunny day. There's another killer shot right there. Just beautiful. I also experimented with slow shutter speeds, but I think it works best if you use a tripod or monopod for those. What about video? For video, it was hard to keep a single pigeon in the frame for more than a couple of seconds. So I used the slow and quick mode set to slow motion. My favorite setting was 120 frames per second. That really showed the elegance of their flight. To get into the slow and quick mode, turn your exposure dial to S and Q. Okay, now you have to go into the slow and quick mode settings, and I have those set up on my quick menu, and this is my video quick menu. And you can go into the frame rate for your video. And with my current video setting, I have a range of 120 to 1 frame per second. I like 120 frames per second, and I think it makes the birds look quite elegant when they're flying. I did use 60 frames per second for some of my testing, but I found that it was too fast for the pigeons because they really flap their wings quickly. Now, not all the frame rates are available for all the different video settings that you use, so you'll have to go into the menus to see what's available. Video is not really my thing, but when using the Lumix G9, you have so many choices. I'm mostly concerned about the basics here. If I'm going into the recording quality and I'm doing 4K 30p, if I go into that menu, it tells me what's available. And in this case, yes, slow and quick mode is available in this mode. If I change the mode, it may not be available. Now, I highly suggest you dig into the owner's manual of the Lumix G9 Mark II to learn more about the slow and quick mode, as well as the regular video settings. I've never noticed the beauty in pigeons. I almost started to like these scrappy birds. Try shooting pigeons with your Lumix G9 Mark II. And if you can shoot pigeons successfully, I guarantee you can shoot any birds. Now here's a pro tip. Wear a hat with a brim, as you might get pooped on. And hopefully you never have pigeons roosting on your house or at your feeders or your balcony, because once they move in, they're hard to get rid of. If you want to learn more about how to use the Lumix G9 Mark II, you can watch this video next.